back to What's Up Watchtower. I'm Robin.
I'm Mike.
And we don't make videos very often, but we made one a couple of months ago.
Yep. Figure we wrap out the year with making a quick video. And
yeah, the one that we made a couple of months ago really struck a nerve.
It did indeed. And I found a lot of the comments interesting because what they were talking about had nothing to do with anything we spoke about in the video. Yeah. But maybe that's for another day.
Yeah, maybe that's for another day. Yeah, Anyways, it has been a very interesting last couple of months with changes in the organization. And in case this is your first time clicking on our video, we are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and we used to make videos a lot. About 7 years ago, we were making videos. Yeah. And we sort of took a break from it, and we've moved on with our life. But there's just been so much going on, and we just felt like we needed to make a video to sort of talk about all of the changes that are happening in the organization. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to do, and some life update stuff too.
Yep. So you want to get right into it?
Yeah, which one do you want to start with?
Well, let me recall the story of me peacefully slumbering in the morning.
Yes, we should recreate that moment.
And Robin comes in and goes, hey, you're not going to believe it. Jehovah's Witnesses are allowed to have beards now. And I think my brain just went into a loop.
I wish I had a photograph of your face when I told you.
It blew my mind. I was speechless and half awake, and nothing made sense. And it still doesn't make sense now that I'm awake.
Yeah, he was his face was priceless. So as many of you will now know, Jehovah's Witnesses are allowed to have beards now.
And they'll tell you were always allowed to have a beard.
Yes. They will gaslight you to believe you were always allowed to have a beard. Well, you were. You're a free agent. You're allowed to do anything you want, right? It's a free country.
You just wouldn't have any privileges. You wouldn't be allowed to go out in service. You'd be probably deemed as a
bad association. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you wouldn't have any friends, and you would eventually stop going to the meetings, and you would live a happy little life with your beard.
Well, that's what it's starts the process, right? So people stop associating with you. You eventually quit going to the meetings, and then they get to say that they were right about you the whole time, even though they caused it. Yeah. We knew he didn't really love Jehovah. Now he's not even at the meetings. Well, you guys kind of forced him out, so to speak, in that example. But this is something that was never allowed. It was never, ever allowed. And
never allowed in modern history.
Never in our lifetime. For me, I just remember being talked to by the elders a whole lot of times because I had shaved my head before and I had super short hair. I got talked to them because I had long sideburns. I got talked to them numerous times about my hairstyle, which was never, in my opinion, never extreme. And, that's why I think it blows my mind, is because all the times I got talked to about the most basic things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We haven't really talked about this on our channel, but our nephew, two of our nephews are not Jehovah's Witnesses anymore, but one had left many years ago and was disfellowshipped, and he's a nephew through marriage. And then, but my other nephew, who is my sister's oldest son, actually woke up 5 years ago and reached out to us. And that was when we were still making videos, but we weren't making them as regularly. And we kind of helped him to move down to where we lived and to get reestablished. And, he went through the whole process of what people go through after they wake up. And it wasn't that easy. But when he was becoming inactive and waking up, and he went through a whole lot with elders and people in this religion that were supposed to love him. And he started growing a beard. And so there was an elder that came to visit him for a shepherding call and said, well, the first thing the guy says when he sees that my nephew has some facial hair is, I guess you've already made up your mind. And Justin was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're not coming to very many meetings and now you're growing a beard. So you must have decided to leave Jehovah. And that is the attitude.
Yeah, that was always the thinking.
Yeah. You know, the only person that's a witness in my family that has minor in touch with me is my brother. We can text. Usually it's about my aunt when we're texting. But, you know, we were talking about his son-in-law who married to his daughter. When he started growing a beard and how my parents were freaking out and they were very upset about it. And my brother said, well, I don't care if he has a beard as long as he's good to my daughter. And I said, well, I'm glad to hear you say that. But don't you know, it's a slippery slope. And he says, what do you mean? I said, it's a slippery slope to apostasy once you grow a beard.
Yeah, anything that would go against even the slightest cultural ideals of the witnesses was a slippery slope to apostasy. It showed that you weren't 100% on board with every single thing.
Yeah, that you had a rebellious spirit. So, but now they're all allowed to, and you're not allowed to have any feelings about it whatsoever.
Yeah, you're not allowed to feel justified.
No.
Because you thought it was wrong the entire time. No, you got to watch your haughty spirit, you person.
And you were getting ahead of Jehovah's Chariot. And apparently Jehovah's Chariot's really slow if you can get ahead of it.
I think it's got like a flat tire on
It
one
must
side.
have a flat tire.
Something's going on.
I think it just went off into the ditch. It's off, you know.
Maybe there was never a chariot.
Maybe there was never a chariot.
Yeah. So that's been kind of a big one. And the way that they describe it, well, first off, I just have to say that the way that Anthony Morris speaks in these videos. Stephen Lett. Oh, that's another thing.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
Stephen Lett. I swear it reminds me of Barney, the big purple dinosaur, speaking to preschoolers. Because the way that they talk, and it's not just him, it's all the governing body members when they're doing like JW broadcasting and stuff. The way that they talk, to me, it's insulting. I wouldn't want people to talk to me that way. I can't understand anything that they're saying. Like they have to dumb it down in the simplest possible words. It's like they're teaching 3-year-olds.
I have to speed it up to 2 times speed, and it's only kind of at normal talking speed when you speed it up 2 times.
Yeah, and the inflection and the way they talk, that's not how people talk.
No.
It's not real. None of that's real. That is the fakest stuff I've ever seen, and it's so off-putting.
It's very off-putting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going somewhere with that, and I got distracted by how dumb they talk. One of the talking points in the video was that beards are now more socially acceptable, and people in positions of authority and power and people in business are now wearing beards.
And politics.
So now, because it's acceptable to the world, now it's acceptable to Jehovah's Witnesses, where it should be the opposite. Like, as beards become more acceptable in the world, then you shouldn't have a beard so that you maintain separation from the world. So this whole concept, everything that they're talking about, it goes against everything we ever learned as Jehovah's Witnesses growing up since the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. It goes against everything that they ever taught.
Since when are their standards of dress and grooming on par with the world's?
Yeah.
It was never that way.
I mean, tight pants were acceptable to the world.
Yeah.
And yet there were talks about not wearing tight pants.
Yeah.
So.
But he's gone now.
So
I guess maybe we can skip to that. We can skip to no more Tony Morris. What's happened to Anthony Morris, y'all? Where'd he go?
Yeah, and I've looked on JW Broadcasting, or not, the jw.org website to see if there was any articles about anything with Anthony Morris, and there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing there, like he never existed.
Here comes Zoe.
So it was just very interesting that a governing body member disappears and nobody talks about it.
Yeah, and they've disappeared him from the website. I mean, well, that's basically it now. It's the website. So, yeah, they removed a governing body member. They announced that he was no longer a governing body member. It was on the website, and then it was not on the website. Why did they remove it from the website? Mm-hmm. That it's an announcement. It's an announcement that should stay as the historical, record of what announcements you make. But they took it down probably because the apostates were having a field day with it, and that's probably why they removed it. And I would venture to guess that many Jehovah's Witnesses still don't know.
Yeah.
That a governing body member was removed.
Well, I thought it was interesting, especially when we first started making videos. I became very familiar with every member of the governing body. I knew all their names. But when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I don't think I knew more than 2 or 3 of their names, and that was because of convention parts that they gave, or their name was mentioned in conjunction with articles or talks they had given or something historic. So it wasn't even super common for witnesses to know all their names, and I bet a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses couldn't name 3 of the governing body members.
Yeah,
maybe now, since JW Broadcasting has become a little more common, maybe they know a few, but I wonder how many witnesses even watch that.
I don't know.
So it's just weird that there's no announcement, because people have stepped down from being circuit overseers or district overseers or positions of, higher up positions, and there's a reason, like, oh, they have ailing health, or they need to be with their family, or something else has happened. But for there to be no explanation.
I've never heard of a governing body member stepping down. I've never heard of that. That's a lifetime appointment, like a Supreme Court judge. They're in there for life.
Did Jairus step down because of his age?
No. He was still a governing body member, but he had like helpers and things like that because he was, so feeble and everything. But he was still living in Bethel as a governing body member. So I've never heard, you're the faithful slave. You're the one that's going to be fighting with Jesus and destroying everybody. And they're so happy that they're going to be fighting and killing people at Armageddon. They get really excited and put their fists up and, yes, we're going to be doing this. And they don't want to give up that opportunity to kill billions of people.
No. What a crazy situation.
Mm-hmm. All right. We're trying to keep this concise. I said we got to try to keep this to a half an hour. So let's move on to point number 3, which is we found out when we were on vacation with my nephews we went on a trip with my nephews up to Gatlinburg, and I said, and I saw a video when I was watching some videos when I was getting ready one day, and I said, hey, they're not counting time anymore.
Yep. That's another shocker.
Yeah.
No more counting field service time. And that was another thing, that if you didn't turn in your field service time to your book study conductor, or you were irregular.
No, where were we at? No more counting time.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you saying?
I was just saying that it's shocking that, because that was another one of those points of contention you were constantly reminded, don't forget to turn in your service time. Try and maintain the national average. Like, if you weren't maintaining the approximate 10-hour national average in field service time, you were never going to be used in the Kingdom Hall with any responsibilities. You could never be a ministerial servant or an elder.
And anybody who said, and I knew people who said that, they would go out in field service, but they refused to turn in time. I actually knew somebody like that. And I was just like, why aren't you? And they're like, because it's not scriptural. They even said it wasn't scriptural, and that didn't prove that they were that they loved Jehovah, like that this was unnecessary. And I back then I was kind of young, and I was just like, well, I don't know, if you've put in the hours, you should at least claim it.
Well, it was some kind of way to gain approval by the congregation that you were participating. And especially if you had higher hours, well, then you were going to be used more in the Kingdom Hall ministry school and parts. And that's men or women. It's like if you had good service time, you were the one they were asking to give impromptu talks or to, fulfill a bunch of assignments, and that was just how it was.
And so if this was Jehovah's Holy Spirit leading this faithful slave, why does it keep changing? Why does the Holy Spirit keep getting it wrong? Why do they keep getting it wrong?
And why does it seem to be going toward following worldly standards as opposed to against worldly standards? Why are worldly standards now acceptable on some levels where they never were before?
They always criticize the lax standards of the world and the world's religions, that you could, just go to church on Sunday and that was enough. Well, with the Zoom meetings, a lot of people don't want to go back to the Kingdom Hall, and now they're not being required to turn in time. So who knows if they're doing field service, and if they are, they're just standing on a corner with a cart looking at their phone.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how are they? And they also said they would never have a televangelist.
Yeah,
work.
no television ministries.
And now that's all it is. And any witness that you would talk to on the street by their cart, and we've seen plenty of videos of people who have taken of trying to talk to these witnesses, they just say, check out jw.org, go to jw.org, you can find the answers there. Like, they're completely brain dead.
Yeah. And in those instances, I've seen many times where like one of the brothers who's there or an elder will come to try and like wrangle this person who's asking too many questions. And when they get confronted with things directly about the organization, they'll pack up the cart and leave.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have any arguments to defend themselves against the things that have happened. And it's just a cult type of mentality that you just can't listen to any side. You can't, follow along or agree with anything that doesn't go hardline with the organization. So.
Right. Along with that, no more message of judgment. I always wonder, when are we going to be doing that? That's going to be really scary to do, to go up to people and say, hey, guess what? This is the end times. We're in the Great Tribulation. It's too late for you. You're going to die at Armageddon.
Yeah.
The ark door is closed.
And I guess they're not going to have to find that out, how that goes.
No, because anybody can get in at any time now.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the whole push back 8 years ago of Return to Jehovah? You remember that brochure and how they were pushing to go out to your inactive ones and those who hadn't been to meetings in a long time, that had fallen away, and try to bring them back. And by the way, that was what prompted me to say to Mike, who had been saying we should be making videos, and I was just like, when my dad came at me with that frickin' brochure, I was like so furious, because I knew that they would never accept me for my choices and who I am, and just love me for who I am. And so we really didn't have an honest relationship, and I couldn't 100% be me, and they didn't want to know me. All they want to know is a Jehovah's Witness version of me. So that was the moment when I said, I'm ready to start making videos.
Right. And I remember we talked about it when we did our first handful of videos or whatever. It's that we knew at that time that our families would rather us be miserable and call ourselves a Jehovah's Witness.
Yes.
Even if we didn't follow everything 100%, they'd rather us be miserable than for us to be happy and not be a Jehovah's Witness.
Exactly.
And even when we knew truth about so many of the beliefs, about changes in doctrine, about things that were being covered up, about child sexual abuse, mishandling, and all of these things, when we learned about these things, they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear real factual things that can be checked out and researched. You can watch the court testimony from the Australian Royal Commission. That's unrelated to any Jehovah's Witness product or information. This is a secular court that they would refuse to acknowledge that even existed. They would call you a liar if you talked about that. So with that kind of thinking, it's just, there's nothing to be done.
They refuse to even watch that their own governing body member, Jeffrey Jackson, had to testify because he was in Australia when it was going on, and they deposed him, and he testified, and that he even said it would be, what did he say? It would be arrogant of us to think that we were the only organization that had God's backing. So they told so many lies. He told so many lies in that testimony. And for a witness to watch that, they wouldn't even believe that it was real.
Well, and in that testimony, they talked about disfellowshipped people and what happens with disfellowshipped people. And he, a governing body member, was adamant that normal family relations would continue. You just wouldn't talk about religious stuff.
Yep. He insisted that normal family relationships outside of spiritual things would continue.
And that Jehovah's Witnesses do not shun.
And that witnesses don't shun.
That was news to me.
Yeah, it was news to me because we know that was a lie. And any organization that is going to lie to protect its image, you got to ask yourself, why are they lying? Why don't they stand firm to what they believe, even if the world thinks it's wrong?
Well, that's always been the way you knew that what you believed was right as a witness, because the world thought it was wrong. And if you were in agreement with what the world thought, you were doing something wrong as a Jehovah's Witness. Like, you're supposed to be no part of the world.
Well, lots have changed over the past few years, and especially this past year. There's another topic. I wrote a little list here. We had another little topic to talk about, and it's kind of a hard one to talk about. But Mike's father passed away.
Yep, that was the week of Thanksgiving, and kind of happened very suddenly. You know, my dad was sick, and then, boy, within a week or so, he was gone.
Yeah.
So
he was sick for longer than that, but when it came to a point where they knew that he probably wasn't going to survive, his sister actually did call him and tell him. But he never talked to his father. He never had a reconciliation.
Well, after we were going back a little ways, when we made our very first video, my parents were scheduled to be like, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that, maybe a month, they were coming down by where we live.
It would have been longer than that. It took 6 weeks from our first video going up before they found out.
Okay, so either way, it was a close proximity of time that they were supposed to come down and visit. And we never thought that our first video would be made known to our family and seen by people we knew so quickly. I mean, it was just one of those things. It all just happened very quickly.
Yeah, this is going back almost 8 years ago.
Right. So. But I thought at that point that because they were coming down, that we would have a talk in person about a lot of the stuff that we were thinking. And, you know, I've always been pretty open. Had always been pretty open with my dad, because he would call me, you know, up until the time we started making videos, about once a year, and going, hey, the memorial's coming up, you know, you think about going to the memorial or whatever. He would always try and remind me of that kind of stuff. But afterward, when they had seen the first video or whatever, and we heard about that through other people, that was it. No communication from then on. And I had texted and I tried to call just to say, hey, look, it's obviously that you've seen our video. I'd like to talk to you about some of these things, or if you want to talk to me, you know, whatever, but never any kind of a response. So that was it. Like, after we made our first video, I've had zero communication with my parents.
Yeah, I mean, we had made a few videos by the time they discovered it, but yeah, so, you know, it's really sad that he, didn't get to say goodbye, and that they didn't get to like reconcile in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also sad that like nobody in my family reached out to text or anything to express condolences to Mike. We're family. Normal family relations continue, according to Jeffrey Jackson.
Right, and our parents, they know each other well.
Yeah.
So it's not like they've never talked to each other or heard from each other. They all lived in the same area. They had gotten together before too. They were friends, kind of, I guess.
So, and then we heard through the grapevine that his sister told my family that Mike was indifferent, which wasn't true at all. He wasn't indifferent, but shocked, like, especially when someone who's sort of already dead to you because you haven't had a relationship or talked or seen them in 7.5 years, and they have treated you like you're dead, so it's as if they're dead also.
Well, I think, after we had decided we were going to disassociate ourselves, I have an older brother who was disfellowshipped before, and I remember it being like, you don't talk to that person, you don't think about that person, you don't bring that person up. And I knew that was going to be the case once we disassociated. But, but you don't really know, because I know people who are not witnesses whose parents still talk to them, even if it's just occasionally or whatever. So you don't truly know, but yeah, I kind of thought that would be the case. But it was just, I don't know, different than I imagined. I felt kind of numb about everything. Obviously, I wish I would have been able to have a better relationship as an adult, especially with my dad, because I liked him, his personality, and I think we had a lot of things in common. I think we could have been friends as adults, but that never happened.
Yeah. So, it's been difficult. It's been difficult, I think, more for me than you, just because I am reminded of the fact that my parents will pass away, and most likely we won't reconcile. They won't wake up, or at the very least, just accept me for who I am and apologize for shunning me. That's never gonna happen.
Mm-mm.
Even if deep down they know that they're wrong, which maybe they don't because they're too proud. But even if they did, they'd probably still be too proud to ever reach out and try to make amends. And I don't even know if I would be open to that anymore. So much time has passed, but it stirred up a lot of stuff. Stirred up a lot of crap inside me. A lot of feelings. A lot of things that I don't want to feel anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like it won't ever truly go away because our lives have been so inextricably bound to the organization, because that's how we were raised. That was our entire life up until our early mid-30s.
Yeah.
So
anytime we hear about these changes, it's like a slap in the face.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a slap in the face. And they know it. The governing body knows it. Stephen Lett knew it when he was talking about, how are you going to feel? Are you going to be disappointed and be upset that people are now allowed to have beards? Or are you going to feel justified and vindicated? And so they're gaslighting both sides. Like you're trying to control the way somebody feels to a change that should have been never even necessary to have been made.
Right. Well, that's what they do. They tell you how you should feel.
Yeah.
They can't just tell you about something and allow you to feel whichever way you feel about it. They tell you about something, they tell you how to accept it, and they tell you how to feel about it.
How to think about it, how to feel about it, how to act about it. They control every aspect of your life. Yeah. Or at least they're trying to.
And the shame is that the people who have bought into that way of thinking, the people who are Jehovah's Witnesses now, they'll never be able to see that. I'm fully convinced that the people who I thought, potentially people, I used to think you could wake people up by showing them evidence of things, and I'm convinced that you can't do that. now. You have to let people wake up in their own time when something affects them directly, is when it kind of hits home and makes people think twice about it. But if that doesn't ever happen, if people aren't confronted with something that directly challenges their worldview, then they'll just go along with it. They're not going to seek that out, you know, as a brainwashed Jehovah's Witness. So
it's more obvious to me now than ever before that they are mind controlled.
mm-hmm.
So much so. Yeah, it just becomes more and more obvious. But anyway, so that is our update. That is our thoughts on all the changes. And, you know, we don't know how often we're going to make videos, but we just felt like we had to make a video to talk about some of these things.
Yeah.
And
for the people who have been Jehovah's Witnesses for a decade or whatever, they just
you don't know.
You
don't know
about all the things that have changed.
It's not the same religion that we grew up in.
Because I'm 50 years old. I was born in 1973, and growing up in the 70s and 80s as a Jehovah's Witness, it's a different religion than it is now. And I think a lot of the people I grew up with in my age bracket now, they're not witnesses anymore, because they've seen enough things change that you just can't take it seriously. It becomes so obvious that this is a man-made cult and that it's just mechanized to control people. So the people who are in now who think, oh, well, these apostates, you know, you can't trust the things they say. You have no point of reference.
No.
You know, and it's not like you have a full set of the bound volumes of Watchtower and a way to go back on and like research. Not like people do that nowadays anyway.
Yeah.
It takes work to uncover the truth, and a lot of people just aren't interested in doing any kind of work. They want everything spoon-fed to them so they can have an easy life, but that is just, well, they'll get what, you know, you reap what you sow.
As the good book says.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. We've gone over the 30-minute mark, so we need to finish.
Okay.
Well, until next time, whenever that might be, we wish you a happy new year.
Yep.
And enjoy your freedom. And yeah, until next time.